Hello, it's me, Nash Quella, and I'm here to talk to you about sea scorpions. And this is my co host, Caleb Markham. Say something.
Hello.
That's Caleb. So, basically, the sea scorpion, the smallest species were about 0.8 inches long, and the largest were about 8.2 feet long, about the size of an adult crocodile. But the usual species that you found all around the globe were about 3.3 feet long and about 400 pounds at the largest species for their weight. In appearance, they just looked like a large arthropod, similar looking to a modern scorpion, but with a different, more aquatic tail and much, much, much longer. In terms of climate, it was relatively hot from the sun and them being in shallow lakes and oceans. Any questions on that?
Yes, what type of water do they live in? Fresh water?
They lived in fresh and brackish water.
Okay.
In their ecosystem, there was also plants and animals. Basically, for plants, there was stuff like seaweed and algae, basic green plants from a long, long time ago. And in terms of animals around it, there was Dunkleosteus, a large armored fish, which was it's a big fish, and it ate stuff. There were also early sharks that it swam along with. There were general fresh and brackish water fish. Around that time was the time of armored fish with hard exteriors, which would. Dunkleosteus was one of the largest of them, but I can't name specific ones off the top of my head. But I know that they were like regular fish, but they had a hard outer shell. For its niche, it was basically carnivore, and sometimes it would be a predator, sometimes it would be a scavenger, usually prowling shallow lakes, seas, and other fresh and brackish water, stalking smaller fish and then attacking them. They also ate other Eurypterids. They ate other sea scorpions. By the way, their scientific name is Eurypterid, which is Greek for Eurus, meaning broad or wide, and pteron, meaning wing or feather. Something about their claws being farther away from their body. For adaptations it had that made it one of the top predators of its time, it had claws that wouldn't allow fish to slip away, and it had giant size to tower over the prey. Not necessarily. It also had segments and joints, so it can move easily in water. Got any questions about that?
No, not really.
Okay. In terms of evolution and extinction, basically it went extinct because global warming during the Great Permian extinction left it unable to breathe. Called the Great Dying, a bunch of volcanoes erupted, causing more CO2 to go into the air, thus a decrease in oxygen, leaving 96% of creatures on the entire planet dead, including the Eurypterid. Its two closest living relatives are the horseshoe crab and the scorpions, which also descend from Eurypterids. The modern scorpions, they all come from Eurypterids. Their last common ancestor was some unknown Precambrian water bug. We can't particularly figure out what it was, but it was some sort of thing during the Cambrian era. In conclusion, Eurypterids were a large, scary sea predator that was related to horseshoe crabs and scorpions. It lived in freshwater seas and lakes. It was an amazing animal that went extinct due to a fascinating mass death of all but 4% of creatures on Earth. Things in the past sure were wacky, especially the sea.
Hi, my name is Mallory. I'll be telling you about a prehistoric animal. This one is pretty cool. It's the almighty Titanoboa. Yeah, a snake. Gross, right? What makes it worse is it's 42 feet long and 3 feet wide. This snake is commonly known as the Titanoboa. This is a mouthful, but its scientific name is the Titanoboa aeruginosus. You may ask, now Mallory, what does that mean? Well, it relates closely to what it actually is, gigantically large snake found in Saragen. Because it's literally found in Saragen. Well, you could say, where's Saragen at? It's located in northern Colombia. This gigantically large snake is 42 feet long, 3 feet wide. The height of a snake is 42 feet long if it was put vertically. And it weighs about 1.25 tons, which is 2,755 pounds. That means nothing compared to its size, but a baby humpback whale can compare it to its weight because a baby humpback whale is about 1 ton. You may ask, well, what does the Titanoboa look like? Well, I'll try my best to describe it for you. Well, it's thick and long, like enormous, gigantic, and massive. It has small, sharp, pointy teeth, kind of like a shark. The ecosystem that the Titanoboa lives in was very hot and humid. It had to live in 31 and 30 degrees Celsius, which is equal to 86 to 87 degrees Fahrenheit. The plants in the Titanoboa's ecosystem included Acaricea, Babacariaceae, Oloricea, and Malvaceae, and Menispermaceae. And the animals there were the giant turtle, the crocodile Lamorphia, the Titanoboa is a carnivore. So it ate other snakes like cobras and pythons and other boa constrictors. It also ate its own kind, like their eggs. Nothing preys on the Titanoboa because it was way too large, and keeping in mind that not many animals lived near it, its own species could kill it because some were larger than others, and they also could eat each other's own eggs when they were smaller. Its role is the carnivore, and you may ask, well, what is a carnivore? Well, it means it only ate meat and kept stems and leaves out of its diet. Leading on to that is, how did it kill its prey? Well, it had upper and lower rows of teeth on its jaw. They were really small and really sharp. It had a lot of teeth, so it can grip on its prey. Apparently, according to scientists, it had a skin coat that was very dull in color. You may ask, well, why isn't this animal alive anymore? Well, it became extinct due to climate change in the rainforest. Well, what is climate change, you could ask, in the rainforest? Well, it was when the shifting of the tectonics that disrupted the ocean currents and lowered the temperature that the Titanoboa needed to survive in. The Titanoboa's evolution was Paleocene epoch. You may ask, well, is there anything similar to the Titanoboa? Well, not exactly. They had similar ancestors, though, which include the red-tailed boa, and that measures for around 13.2 feet long, which is 4 meters. Two down the line is the longicauda, which is 7.8 inches, which is 19.7 centimeters. The last common ancestor between them is most likely the anaconda. You may ask, Did anything descend from it? Nothing comes from it and or relates to it. Overall, the titanoboa is very interesting and a little scary, but my final thoughts are always positive, and hopefully you enjoyed.
Hi, my name is Olivia. Today I'll be telling you about a prehistoric animal. This one is really cool, the great Titanosaurus. Yes, a dinosaur. Crazy, right? What makes it even cooler is that it's 70 feet tall, almost the height of a 7-story building, and weighs 200,000 pounds. This dinosaur is mostly known as the Titanic lizard, but it's actually Argentinosaurus huneolensis, meaning Argentine lizard from Hunegal. You're probably thinking, well, what can we relate this to? Well, you can imagine this as big as the Statue of Liberty. Olivia, what would the Argentinosaurus do if it's in danger? It would defend itself by lashing out its long tail to drive away predators. Its legs alone would compare to a 2-story house. This creature was very large and wide. The Argentinosaurus mostly fed on leaves and branches. It was mostly hot and humid in South America where the Argentinosaurus lived, with no evidence of ice ages. This very interesting animal went extinct because an asteroid hit Mexico. The Argentinosaurus also evolved in the Cretaceous period, so basically this dinosaur died due to an asteroid. I think if this dinosaur were to still be alive today, it would survive because it was a herbivore, meaning it mostly fed on leaves and plants.
Hi, my name is Yasmin. Today I'm going to be telling you about Deinosuchus, or its more common name is dinocroc or giant croc. Its name translates to terrible crocodile, and the reason it has that name is because of its size. Even though Deinosuchus means terrible crocodile, its lineage is more closely related to alligators. Deinosuchus was an alligator-like reptile with large and thick teeth. Adults were around 36 feet in length and weighed around 20,000 pounds. It weighed more than 2 forklifts. It was as long as 2 giraffes, stacked on top of each other. Deinosuchus had yellow eyes, suggesting that it was a predator. It was also a swampy green color. Its teeth were the size of bananas. The first remains of the Deinosuchus was in North Carolina. Fossils have been described in 10 U.S. states and along the East Coast. It lived on both sides of the Western Interior Seaway. It was an apex predator in the coastal regions of eastern North America. Deinosuchus got to its size by being in its western habitat, even though the eastern populations were way more plentiful. Larger Deinosuchus species were in brackish water bays. North America has a continental climate. It was in the coastal regions of eastern North America. It was generally dry with cold winters and hot summer seasons. We don't know if that Deinosuchus went into the ocean like modern-day saltwater crocodile or went into freshwater. The Deinosuchus that lived in Central America had sago palm, lots of different types of conifers, podocarpus, pine, cedar, angiosperms, magnolia, and dogwood. The Deinosuchus that lived in North America had angiosperms, cedar, pine, conifers, cypress, metasequoia, horsetails, and cycads. Deinosuchus had competition with mostly marine reptiles like sharks, mosasaurus, and theropods, like Tyrannosaurus and other Deinosuchus. Its main prey were sea turtles and fish, although they ate every aquatic type of prey, though. They were capable of eating large arthropods. Deinosuchus could eat theropods as long as they were medium-sized. Hadrosaurus was also a part of their diet. Deinosuchus killed their prey by spinning their bodies and tearing their flesh and limbs off, also known as a death roll. Bite marks have been found on large dinosaur fossils, suggesting that Deinosuchus preyed on them. They preyed on juvenile dinosaurs because it was way more easier to roll with them. Deinosuchus was one of the biggest crocodiles ever. Its size makes sure no animal can prey on it. Large, long teeth for crushing things like bone were an adaptation, and usually large and heavy osteoderms. Osteoderms were attachment points for connective tissue. The connective tissue and osteoderms work together to support the body out of water. 2 large holes on the tip of its snout are an adaptation to lighten all the bone mass. I'm not sure whether Deinosuchus went extinct because of loss of habitat,
or if it was another reason, so it kind of remains unknown. It disappeared before the main mass extinction. Its closest relatives could have been Ladysuchus and Diplocynodon. Deinosuchus's offspring grew smaller over centuries and evolved into caiman alligators.
Hi, my name is Maddie, and today I'm going to be telling you about the megalania. Its common name was the megalania, and its scientific name was the Varanus prisus. Its scientific name meaning was ancient lizard beast, basically meaning that it overpowered really anything in its environment. The physical description was that it was a giant lizard, and it was related to the Komodo dragon, about 5 meters long and 4 feet tall. Its size comparison was about 3 Danny DeVitos long and 1 Danny DeVito tall. It had razor blade sharp teeth that are angled and rough and tough skin. It weighed about 600 to 620 kilograms and 1,320 to 1,370 pounds. It also had sharp claws. It lived about 2.5 million years ago to 50,000 years ago. It was found in Australia and lived in forests and woodlands, possibly grasslands. It lived during an ice age and ate large mammals, birds, and other reptiles. Nothing really ate the megalania, though. Its size was one of its major adaptations. It can overpower and intimidate really everything. Its teeth and venom were also another big one. The teeth are sharp and angled to catch and hook the prey, then the venom is released to kill the prey. Its claws were used for grip and speed, and its tongue had a certain shape to detect movement all around itself. Its fellows were the giant horned turtle, the polymarchus, large snakes, may, or probably, interacted with humans, and the marsupial lion. The marsupial lion, which was also Charlie's animal, weighed about 100 to 130 kilograms and 220 to 285 pounds. Its adaptations were its back pouch, claws, ability to climb trees, sharp and jagged teeth, and its speed. It was related to the lion and the kangaroo, and its scientific name was Thynocolea carnifex. Its scientific name meaning was meat-cutting pouch lion. The marsupial lion and the megalania fought over prey, and the megalania ate the marsupial lion. It lived about 1.6 to 35 million years ago. Its size was 5 feet long and 12.5 feet tall. In conclusion, the megalania was a ruler of its time and really ate anything. It overpowered everything until humans came around. It had many adaptations to help it survive, and it lived a long and fierce life. In my opinion, the megalania was very interesting to research, and I enjoyed it. It was an important part of history, and it changed our Earth in many ways. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.
Hi, my name is Maddie, and my prehistoric animal is the monster mouse. Its scientific name is Josefa Artegasia monesi, and that means giant rodent found by Joseph N. Monez. Its description is it has beaver-like teeth that are very strong and use like tusks, like a large pacarena, which is its closest living relative right now, and its back feet are flattened as the size of a bull. Its height is 4.9 feet, its weight is 770 to 3,400 pounds, and its length is 9.8 feet. 3 times as heavy as a horse, and as tall as a Danny DeVito, and as long as 2 Danny DeVitos. It's a prey for other animals. It eats vegetation very low on the food chain, and it's an herbivore. Its ecosystem, it lives in South America, in tropical forest or around river deltas or estuaries. Its fossils were found in Uruguay, South America, in a boulder. Its family is Deinomyidae, which is closely related to Pacarena. Its geological time period was 2 to 4 million years ago, which is in the Pliocene-Pleistocene. It was found by Jose Artigas and Alvaro Monez. Only a skull was found, so they had to predict what the actual size is of the creature. Its big giant front teeth was an adaptation. Its bite force was 1,400 newtons, similar to a tiger. Teeth could withstand 3 times that much, 4,200 newtons. Used teeth to fend off terror birds, sprosodonts, and saber-toothed cats. And its ancestors were Phoberomys insulata and Phoberomys pattersoni. Extinction. Beginning of Pleistocene or Ice Age made plants die out, therefore Josefa Autogasia monasi had nothing to eat. And it went extinct. Thank you for listening to my podcast.
Hi, my name is Lily Henning, and the prehistoric animal I'm going to be talking about today is the entelodont. The entelodon's common name is hell pig. They were given this name because they were huge, imposing animals. And of course, its scientific name is entelodont. The meaning of the scientific name is perfect tooth, because it has big, perfect teeth for its environment. At the hell pig's shoulder, they were just under 7 feet. The smallest hell pigs grew to be about 330 pounds, and the largest hell pigs grew to be about 2,000 pounds. The hell pig's skull was 3 feet long, and the entelodont's head is the length of 3 sub-sandwiches, and its height is about 9/10 as tall as an artificial Christmas tree. The hell pig has enormous teeth. The front teeth were large and pointy for ripping flesh and bone, and the back teeth were flat for chewing plants. They had a very long snout and deep-set eyes, and they were several times the modern pigs, even though they're not related to modern pigs at all. They had knobs on the side of their jaw, and they also had hooves. In North America, during the Eocene period, the climate was wet and warm. The entelodont would eat sassafras, elms, maples, and their relatives. An animal that was around when it was and where it lived was the bear dog. It ate seeds, leaves, fruits, animals, and eggs. There were no animals that preyed on the entelodont, making it an apex predator. And because it was an apex predator, the role in its environment was to keep the prey in check. They had huge, long, sharp front teeth to rip apart flesh and bone, but they also had flat back teeth to munch on plants. The females most likely slammed their heads into their rivals' bodies. They also had bony knobs on their faces to protect their eyes and nose when in an attack with another entelodont. And let's talk about their extinction. They're not completely sure why the hell pigs went extinct. It could have been from natural disasters. For example, one of their largest species was called the Dinohyus hollandi, and it might have gone extinct due to the floodplains of Nebraska. Scientists think that the bear dogs could have possibly had something to do with their extinction. Currently, their closest relative is the hippo, but they are also related to whales. The whale is the hell pig's last common ancestor, and hippos and whales descended from the hell pig. In conclusion, the entelodont was a huge, intimidating animal that was an apex predator. It was an omnivore and ate plants and animals. It lived in North America and Eurasia and lived in the Eocene period. We're not completely sure why it went extinct, but it could have had something to do with the bear dog. It's closest related to hippos and whales. The meaning behind its scientific name is perfect tooth. Mainly the females would use the knobs on their jaw when they were fighting to protect themselves. And overall, I think the entelodont's habitat was good for it. It had many different animals for it to feed on, and it also had so many plants. It kept all of its prey in check and in line. It was around for about 18.2 million years.
Hi, my name is Hunter Nestor, and I am here to tell you about the prehistoric bear dog, a large predatory mammal that lived from 55.8 to 23 million years ago, terrorizing the creatures of its time. Bear dog was a truly magnificent creature of its time. Its scientific name was Amphision, which translates to ambiguous dog. which makes sense because it is nor a bear or a dog. It is totally indecisive of what its species is. All it is known is that its closest relative is a wolf. This creature was 9.5 feet long, 6 feet tall, and weighed about 1,400 pounds. It had a large, heavy tail, thick neck and skull, and sharp teeth like a wolf's. It kind of looks like a jaguar, only it's twice as big. It lived in areas with temperate climates such as southern US, mid-Eurasia, and even a small sliver of South Africa. These areas had a different variety of tall grasses, which are what the bear dog used to hide and camouflage itself when hunting. This animal was an apex predator in its environment, but preferred to prey on small or injured animals, like rabbits and foxes. It also ate a youth of another prehistoric animal called Paraceratherium, which went extinct around the same time as the bear dog. Over time, the bear dog's environment became drier and drier. Most of the bear dog's prey adapted to this and became faster and more agile. The drier climate also made it inhabitable for most of the tall grass it used for camouflage. This made it harder for the bear dog to hunt and eventually resulted in the bear dog's population dying out from starvation. In conclusion, this strong, large creature lived for millions of years, terrorizing the other animals that lived in Eurasia, North America, and South Africa. It was climate change that brought its reign of terror to an end by starving its species to death. Now that you have learned about this creature, you can think about how it could have lived. What would its life be like if it still existed today? And would it even be able to survive in today's conditions? Thank you for listening to my podcast, and goodbye.
Hi, my name is Gunnar Bennett, and I'm going to be talking about the American lion. Its common name is American lion. Its scientific name is Panthera atrox. The meaning of Panthera atrox is cruel lion. The average American lion weighed about 256 kilograms. Its length from nose to tail is 5.2 to 8.2 feet. It's 4 feet tall. It is like a lion, but larger with a long head. Its front legs are straight, while the back ones are slightly curved back. Fun fact, the American lion weighed about 2 steel. The American lion had a wet and dry tropical climate. The plants in its ecosystem were thick grasslands. Nothing preyed on it except for humans. Things that it ate were things like bison, juvenile mammoths, horses, mastodons, and really most herbivores that it saw. Its role in its ecosystem is that it helped kill animals and made it to where there was no disease that could spread. There were animals like the juvenile mammoths, mastodon, bison, and horses that were in its ecosystem with it. And why did it go extinct? Some scientists believe their demise is due to human action, climate change, or maybe both. The two closest living relatives to the American lion were modern lions and the panthers. Its closest common ancestor was the Prolaris lemonensis. Nothing directly descended from the American lion that scientists know of. The adaptations the American lion had were things like strength that helped it kill things like juvenile mammoths, things that were bigger and helped. In conclusion, the American lion was a pretty strong animal until there were humans in the climate. I hope that some people find an interesting fact about the American lion, or they like the American lions more than what they did. Or maybe they just found some stuff out, or they didn't even know the American lion existed.
Hello, my name is Charlie Madron. Today I'll be talking about the marsupial lions and what went on in its lifetime. So this marsupial lion had many names. Its common name, the marsupial lion, and its scientific name, Thyocylea carnifex, meaning meat-cutting pouch lion. Its meaning is an extinct genus of carnivorous marsupials that lived in Australia. It's not closely related to a lion, but it is in the order of Diprotodontia carnifex, executioner or butcher. What did it look like? The animal is 5 feet long from nose to tail, 2.5 feet tall at the shoulder, and 100 to 130 kilograms. That's 220 pounds to 285 pounds. Its traits include pointy ears, diamond-shaped face, center eyes, claw feet, wide skull, sharp teeth, and is about 1/3 the size of an African lion. It also has an enlarged thumb to help climb trees to hunt. Description of ecosystem. The marsupial lion lived in the south and west area of Australia. The climate was a warm area with dry summer and winter rainfall in the west. They specifically lived in caves, however, they can live all over Australia. Plants growing within the ecosystem, such as eucalyptus, coriamba, leptospermum, and melaleuca, are trees and woody shrubs. At that time, kangaroos, wombat, and other animals were hunted by lions from trees. This lion hunted from trees, meaning arboreal. The marsupial lion ate anything from wild cucumbers to carrion. That's dead animal flesh. It also feasted on a leaf-eating kangaroo. Megalanias might have eaten the marsupial lion as its source of food. The megalania and the marsupial lion lived in the same place, same time period, and hunted from the same area, the forest and trees. The marsupial lion played the role of an ambush predator and relied on its prey that occupied denser cover. The animal hunted from trees to find its prey. As the landscape became drier and forests less dense, these apex predators may have become less effective hunters and succumbed to extinction. The marsupial lion had many characteristics that made it able to survive in its ecosystem, such as retractable claws, forelimbs, and sharp teeth to help them protect themselves from predators. The retractable claws allowed the claws to stay sharp by protecting them from being worn down on hard surfaces. Evolution and extinction. The extinction of one of Australia's top predators, Thyocylea carnifex, or the marsupial lion, was likely a result of changing weather patterns and loss of habitat, rather than the human impact. When the trees and forests decreased in size, the lion had nowhere to hunt, so they died due to getting eaten from its predators or starvation. Koalas and 3 species of wombats have survived into modern times. They are considered the marsupial lion's closest living relatives. The placental carnivores, like African lions, their last common ancestor, lived over 125 million years ago. The marsupial lion is about 1/3 the size of an African lion today. Kangaroos, wombats, and wallabies are descendants of the marsupial species. In conclusion, the marsupial lion is an extinct animal that has many features that helped it survive. It hunted from trees to find its prey. The animal was an apex predator or at the top of its food chain. It played the role of an ambush predator. Its last common ancestor is an African lion that lived for 125 million years. The marsupial lion is about 1/3 the size of an African lion. The megalania is also an animal that lived around the time. Kangaroos and other animals lived in the area within the marsupial lion's habitat. The marsupial lion is a carnivore eating carrion and other meat. Sadly, this animal went extinct due to climate change caused by plate tectonic shifting. This Australian creature has an impact on animals in Australia today. Final thoughts. In my opinion, I think this animal looked a lot like a lion today. It's crazy that this thing hunted from trees and had a pouch on its rear. It is fascinating to research these things. You don't usually learn about past creatures in the environment, and how they change the earth. Thank you for listening and following along on my research about the marsupial lion.
Welcome to my podcast. My name is Caleb, and I'll be talking today about the Siberian unicorn. These huge beasts lived 100,000 years ago in the time of modern humans. The scientific name of a Siberian unicorn is Elasmotherium sibericum, which means Siberian plated beast. The size of a Siberian unicorn is around 15 feet tall at the shoulder, or about 5 yardsticks tall. It weighed about 4.5 tons, or 2 white rhinos. The Siberian unicorn looked like a very tall, hairy rhino with a big horn. Do you have any questions?
Well, not particularly. I mean, seems like a big rhino with big horn.
Basically. The climate where it lived in, which was Eurasia, was pretty cold, so that's why it was very hairy, hence the name woolly rhino. There were a few plants in Eurasia because it was cold, and it mainly ate grass. There are some other animals in its ecosystem, such as the cave bear. But the reason the Siberian unicorn went extinct was because humans discovered grouping was a thing, and they killed off its species. Any questions?
Well, what type of weapons did the humans use to kill this thing?
We're not really sure because there were a variety of things they could have used, but we're not particularly sure on what exact weapons they would have used. My guess would be spears, because it would be good for long range. Okay, so the Siberian unicorn, its niche was that it was a herbivore, and it was prey because, well, humans hunted it. But since it was a herbivore, it didn't really need to fight because it only ate plants, so it didn't really need to fight for its survival. But in case it did, that's why it has that huge horn on its head, just for protection.
Makes sense.
So the two closest relatives were the woolly mammoth and the Arabian oryx. All of these creatures' last common ancestor is the rhino. Do you have any questions so far?
The last common ancestor?
Is a rhino, yes.
Seems like that would be the descendant.
Let's not get into that much yet.
Okay.
It's just a little podcast. Okay. And the last common... Oh, I already said that. Silly me. It didn't really have any descendants from what I could find. And yeah, so in conclusion, the Siberian unicorn is a giant furry beast that roamed the earth 100,000 years ago. And so my thoughts were that it was so big that it shouldn't really have been killed because, well, I guess humans would want it because of all the meat it had, and they could have used its horn for weapons. So that's my thinking on why they hunted it. And yeah, thank you for coming to my podcast. And
Hi, my name is Austin Nestor, and today I'm here to talk to you about the prehistoric animal named the Dunkleosteus. The common name for this animal was the Dunkleosteus. Its scientific name was the Dunkleosteus torelli. That name means Dunkel's bone because it was found by a man named Dunkel. Its size, it was 28.8 feet long and was about 5.5 meters tall. Slight correction, it was about 5.5 feet tall. And it weighed 4 tons. It looks like a large armored shark that has a lot of armor on its head to protect itself. It has strong jaws and big fins. It lived in shallow waters of seas and oceans. Plants that lived in its ecosystem were they have pretty weird names, but the D. torelli, D. bellicus, and D. denisoni. Animals that lived in its ecosystem were primitive sharks, bony fish, and placoderms. It ate fish, sharks, and sometimes even ate its own kind. Nothing preyed on it because it was the top predator, and the role was the apex predator, which means it was the top of the food chain. Some adaptations that helped this animal survive were it had a very armored body and it had snapping turtle-like jaws. It went extinct because of the Hindenburg event, because it caused marine oxygen levels to go way down or to plunge. Its 2 closest living relatives were the lamprey and the hagfish. Its last common ancestor was the Orandispus, and a species named the lamprey was what it descended from. My conclusion is, say basically you saw a giant shark swimming by and it bit you and it did not let go for a long time, and how much pain you would be in. Thanks. Bye.
Hi, my name is Alex Carson, and today I will be talking to you about the giant hornless rhino. This beast's scientific name was Paracitherium or Indracotherium. Its scientific name means near the hornless beast. It was about 26 feet tall from ground to the tip of its head when its shoulder length was fully raised. It is 30 feet long from nose to rump. It weighed 33,000 to 44,000 pounds, which is about 3.5 times as much as an elephant. If I had to describe it in my own words, I would describe it as an armored rhino without a horn and a giraffe-like neck. Some lived in deserts, very arid deserts, while others lived in subtropical rainforests. Some plants in its ecosystem were prehistoric trees, soft plants, berries, shrubs, and many other vegetations. Some of the other animals in this creature's ecosystem were artiodactyls, rodents, bear dogs, weasels, hyenodonts, and hemorrhoids, also the hyaenurus. It mainly fed off of leaves and shrubs, and it was preyed on by bear dogs and hyaenurus. Only its calves were eaten, though, because as an adult it was too big to eat. It played the role of seed spreader because whenever it decaffeinated, in its feces were seeds that it would spread across the land. It had adaptations to survive, including its hulking size and some other factors that played into its body. It went extinct because its calves were overhunted, and it had a very low reproduction rate because elephants take about 3-ish years to reproduce, and it was almost 3.5 times as big as an elephant. So just imagine how long it would take for this thing to reproduce. Its two closest living relatives are horses and other breeds of rhinoceroses. Its common ancestor was the Cambatherium, which most animals with the suffix therium descended from. One of the animals that descended from it was Urtinotherium. And that is all the information about this animal that I have for you. Alright, in conclusion, I would like you to take away that if you were walking through a forest or anything and you saw a ginormous giraffe-looking thing that looks like a hornless rhino, then you'd be pretty scared. That's all.